So without further ado, I'm going to get started and welcome you all to the Environmental Forum of Marin's lecture series. And this is our final lecture for this year. It is not our final activity, however. So please keep your emails open and keep looking at our upcoming activities, and we will talk about those towards the end. But again, I want to welcome you all to the lecture series. My name is Ann Bauer. I've been the coordinator of the lecture series for this year. And I just want to remind you of the two great programs of the Environmental Forum of Marin, which are the Master Class and the lecture series, which we're a part of right now. The Master Class is a series of seminars, field trips, and other classes to enrich you and help you engage in environmental issues to advocate and educate. It runs from August through November. It's a weekly Tuesday and Saturday class, and we will be starting our preview event in August. We'll have that date at the end, so that if you are thinking about the master class, there's actually a preview event where you can come and think more about it. You don't have to commit, and that'll be coming in August. Part of the master class is a project, or are projects. And today's lecture is actually the project of the man standing behind me, Cory Bytof. And Cory is the Sustainability and Volunteer Program Coordinator for the City of San Rafael. He works with city staff and community partners to realize the vision of the city's climate change action plan, including coordinating the quarterly community implementation forums. He's helped form the San Rafael Clean campaign, an anti-litter coalition in San Rafael. As a member of the city's emergency operations team, he's manages the city's emergency volunteer center. And I'm going to jump over and say he's been the past chair of the Marin Climate Energy Partnership, a consortium of local governments and public utilities working together to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in Marin County. And he is a passionate, vibrant man for sustainability. And I'm going to turn it over for him to guide you into this evening's event.
Thank you, and it's really a pleasure to work with Ann here. Ann and I work together during the day as well. She's our volunteer program assistant with the City of San Rafael, and she's amazing with volunteers because she does so much volunteering herself. She knows exactly how to treat them and make them feel special. So thank you, Ann, and it's nice to work with you on this. Uh-oh, that's okay.
Critical. He's going to kill me now. No, just one, turn off your cell phones. Bathrooms are in the back in the foyer, but really the most important is that we are filming today. This event is being filmed by the community, I always get them wrong, Media Center of Marin. And so if you don't want to be filmed as we get up and do some engagement, just keep away from the camera. But right now, as we speak, and the lecturers are speaking, they will be filming up here. So great. I was required to do that.
We're dealing with a little bit of feedback, so we're adjusting the mic as we go here. Hopefully it won't be too bad. So thanks. So yeah, how this came about. This came about because I was in the master class 43. EFM, if you haven't done it, do it. It's great. It's amazing what you learn in that. So thank you, EFM. So we'll go right into the agenda then. Whoops, but I got to get out of this one and get the next one up. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. This basically the outline is that I'll give a little introduction, a little background on what's happening with the climate, state levels, and all that. Then Christine will speak, and she'll talk a little bit about our action plans, our climate action plans throughout the county, our greenhouse gas inventories, how we're doing toward our state targets. Then Dana Armanio will talk about county programs and what you can do. I know a lot of you are doing a lot already. We're going to have an action exercise. So for those of you that don't have 6 stickers, you'll have a chance to gather one more, just like a Boy Scout badge, only different. And then Christine will come back and show you our wonderful, beautiful Marin Sustainability Tracker, which is this great online tool, interactive online tool that shows you how we're doing, all the cities and towns are doing. At the end, David Kuhnhardt will host a little Q&A and then talk a little bit about how you can engage your elected officials. Okay, so a little bit about me. I know we had the official bio, but people often ask, how did you get involved in environmental stuff? When did you first know that you wanted to work for environmental stuff? Well, I didn't exactly know that, but I do remember when I was 18 years old. Anybody seen this bumper sticker on cars? So I grew up in Florida. So this bumper sticker was everywhere. What I read it to be, I was working at Kmart, I was loading some mulch into somebody's car, they drove away, and what I immediately thought was, yeah, they're wasting our resources for future generations. There's a lot of seniors there. I was not the smartest tool in the shed. I didn't totally get it. But I do remember that that's what I thought. And then I was very fortunate about 6 years ago to be asked to be the sustainability coordinator when the city hired the first sustainability coordinator, thanks to all the folks that advocated for our climate action plan to have that position. I am indebted. So what I get to do is work with Anne, of course, and coordinate volunteers. Like on the bottom right, we do cleanup days, and we pull broom, and we do plantings, and do all sorts of things. We've got about 2,000 volunteers for the city of San Rafael in various departments and things as well. I get to work with the Marin School of Environmental Leadership. Amazing students doing amazing work, and it's really fun to work with them and see this next generation of climate leaders. We do conservation efforts, like we did a water conservation pilot last year. We get to work with the streets team and do more composting and recycling at events like the farmers market. I get to work with resilient neighborhoods, and we have tons of eco teams. Matter of fact, we had 3 city hall eco teams in San Rafael, which was really great. That's Councilmember Collin there with her team. We did the plastic bag ordinance, the single-use EPS ordinance, and get to work on all sorts of great energy things as well. So Marin Climate Energy Partnership, that is the consortium that Anne mentioned that is one of the most impactful things here in Marin as far as I'm concerned. It's a partnership of all Marin's jurisdictions. We all get to work together. We leverage our funding, we leverage our resources so we can do a lot more. We work with our public utilities as well. It's been in effect since 2007. Without that, I don't know how easy it would have been to have all of our greenhouse gas inventories, all of our climate action plans. We work together to implement things in our climate action plan so we're not all going it alone. So Resilient Neighborhoods is one of our feature programs this year, and yay, just got a big grant to be able to move forward with that even more. Woo. And that's our website, marinclimate.org. It's great. Okay, state of the climate. I get to do the Armageddon slides. Sorry, but we got to set it up so that when we get to the real important stuff of the program, you're ready for it. So, as you know, we're at the highest levels of carbon dioxide. 350 ppm is what we wanted to avoid, and now we're going up and down, but around the 400 range. Temperatures are rising. Land temperatures even more concerning. Ocean temperatures are rising. The effects of these things, the consequences, if you drove to the Sierra at all last year, you've seen the effects firsthand. It's pretty awful. 2.7 billion it cost us in 1 year alone in 2015. 100 million trees have died. Fires are larger. They're burning hotter than ever before. They're calling them mega fires. And the East Coast is starting to understand what the West Coast has been going through now. They had the big fires in that drought last year, and now they're suffering the same effects we had, which is all the erosion and all the flooding from the storms that have come after that. A few key things that I've seen in the paper recently, which you may have seen as well, the Great Barrier Reef, they're saying that hundreds of miles of the Great Barrier Reef are basically dead, that they don't expect them to come back, that they're bleached beyond repair. There's this interesting story about the river in the Yukon that dried up within a year's time. They were measuring flows one year. They came back the next year to dust. Meanwhile, because of the receding glacier, it's receding so quickly. Meanwhile, another tributary that it flows into increased their flows 60 to 70%. Can you imagine a rushing river increasing 60 to 70% and another one drying up immediately? So one of the key things that we learn in communication, climate communication, is with deniers and folks that really aren't on board, or maybe they believe it but they're not willing to take action, is that you can't be talking about 2100. You need to be talking about now. There are big things that are happening right now that are unprecedented. And of course, the Arctic was one of the big stories this winter too. Huge, 25 degrees or 32 degrees actually above regular temperatures. Places that were covered in ice were open in the winter, open water. So where we're headed, we're on a path to increase our temperatures 4 degrees Celsius by 2100. We need to avoid 2 degrees Celsius, and we're already halfway there. However, there is some good news. The Paris Agreement, despite the Trump administration's unwillingness to participate, is going into effect, and 194 other countries are moving forward. Global emissions have been flat pretty much over the past few years. California's emissions, US emissions have been going down. There are agencies that are working on problems that we've all been scratching our head about. Well, what do we do about airplane travel? Cost of renewables is dropping, continues to drop, which is really important because economics will drive it more than policy anyway. And then, as you know, 8th largest economy in the world, we have a lot to say. So despite what happens on the federal level, we're going to continue to work on that in California. But there is action on the federal level as well. I'll get to that in a minute. Greenhouse gas reduction goals. So this is what the state set. In 2006 is when we started on the path of setting targets that we want to meet. And since these targets have been set, all the Marin cities have jumped on board and set those targets as well in our climate action plans. Last year, they set interim targets of 40% reductions of 1990 levels by 2030. And that's a big push right now. And then we have the stretch goal by 2050 to reduce our emissions 80% from 1990 levels, which is huge. The state's got their 6-pillar plan, and this is how they intend to do it. And we'll be seeing more legislation and policy actions that come down that will support this. 50% renewable electricity, 50% reduction of petroleum in vehicles. Here's a tough one, dealing with existing buildings and getting them to have energy efficiency. Carbon sequestration, pulling that carbon back into the earth, like Marin's carbon project right here. Reducing the short-lived climate pollutants. Things like refrigerants are 1,000 times more impactful in terms of global warming than carbon is, but they last a lot shorter in the atmosphere. And then Safeguard California, which recognizes that we're seeing impacts now, and we're going to see a lot more impacts in the future, so we need to start planning for it and figuring out how we're going to adapt to those changes. So I promised federal action. So there's a lot going on at the federal level, actually. So let it never be said that we're not doing anything on the national level. So before I introduce Christine O'Rourke, I would like to take a quick poll. How many of you have either read or skimmed your city, town's, or the county's climate action plan? That is a significant amount of you. That is really great. So we knew we might be preaching to the choir. Nevertheless, I want to introduce Christine O'Rourke, who's our sustainability coordinator for the Marin Climate and Energy Partnership. She's also a private planning consultant. Whoops. And some fun facts about Christine. She loves to bike when she travels. She's survived the streets of New York and Berlin, as well as an unanticipated scary ride along a highway in Italy. We like to consider her our GHG guru, our CAP connoisseur, and all-around sustainability superhero. So give it up for Christine O'Rourke.
He actually said that. I wasn't sure he was going to do that. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here tonight. And let me just take a second to get my presentation up. Okay. All right. So I'm going to be talking tonight about our climate action plans and kind of what's in them. It's great to see that so many of you have actually looked at a climate action plan. So I'll talk about the strategies that we have, what our greenhouse gas reduction goals are, and how we're measuring our progress with our greenhouse gas inventories. Actually, Cory's already done this slide, so we're going to skip right to the next one. So one thing, there's certain things that all climate action plans have in common. The first thing is that it has to establish a baseline greenhouse gas emissions. And so all of our cities and towns did initial greenhouse gas inventories back in 2005. We were actually one of the first counties in all of the state to do it, so we're kind of a guinea pig in that regard. The county has data for 1990. It turns out that some of the counties, and certainly at the statewide level, we have greenhouse gas emissions data for all the different sectors going back to 1990, but for the jurisdictions like little towns and cities, we don't have data going back that far. The next thing that we do is we estimate future emissions. And we do this by utilizing population and jobs projections as well as traffic modeling projections. And then we take that data and we say, okay, we're starting off at this baseline emissions, and then we're going to project out to a certain year, whether it's 2020 or 2030 or 2035, whatever our horizon year is. The next thing that we do is we set a goal for reducing emissions, and most of our cities and towns have done this kind of statewide goal. This is what we consider comparable to making 1990 levels, and that's 15% below 2005 baseline emissions by the year 2020. Some of our cities have been a little bit more aggressive. Fairfax, for instance, is going with 20% below their 2005 baseline. San Rafael is... Sorry about that. San Rafael is even a little bit more aggressive with a goal for 25% reduction below 2005. Is it too close? Okay. And then, that's all right. Okay. All right, how's that? And then, probably most aggressive of all is the unincorporated county, and their goal is to reduce emissions 30% below their 1990 levels by 2020. So the next thing we do in the climate action plans is we quantify the state action. So this is all the programs and things that the state is doing to reduce emissions, and they're going to do this whether the cities and towns participate or not. So there are things like the building codes. Building codes get more stringent every time we do a new cycle adoption. That happens about every 3 years. We're on the path to zero net energy buildings. So the state is looking for zero net energy residential buildings by 2020 and commercial buildings by 2030. There's also very strict vehicle fuel efficiency standards here in California, so we quantified the reductions from that, and then also the renewable portfolio standard. And this is the requirement for utility providers to get their energy from more and more renewable sources over time. So then once we know what the state impact is going to be, we can look at our future emissions and reduce the state impacts, and then say, okay, now what do we do? What can we do on the local level to reduce emissions even further to get to our target? So the climate action plans generally have these 4 sections in them. There's energy, waste, transportation, water and wastewater, and there are a lot of specific things that the cities can do, both at the community level and within their own government operations, to either conserve resources, conserve energy, improve their energy efficiency, reduce waste, reduce their vehicle miles traveled, and conserve water. So I won't go into it any further than that. If you haven't looked at your climate action plan, you can find them usually on your city's websites. We also have all of them on the Marin website at marinclimate.org. So at this point, all of our Marin jurisdictions have a climate action plan. And we are doing annual community inventories in order to track our progress. We just started doing the annual inventories last year, so we have data going back to 2005. We have every year, and it's really actually producing some very interesting data for us. So this is a look at community emissions countywide for the last year we have data available. That's 2015. And most of the emissions, as you can see, is coming from the transportation sector. Probably not a big surprise. It's over half of the emissions come from transportation. The second largest sector is the residential sector, and that's representing energy used in our homes, natural gas and electricity, to a small extent propane. The third largest sector is the commercial sector, so the same thing. It's energy used in commercial buildings. The agriculture sector, this is energy that's produced from manure management, enteric fermentation, and fertilizer. And then we have these smaller sectors. The waste sector is what happens from the decomposition of organic material in our landfill. So that produces methane. We capture most of it, but some of it is released into the atmosphere. And then the off-road sector are emissions that come from off-road vehicles and equipment in landscaping and construction and the agricultural category. And then finally, water and wastewater. Most of this, at least certainly in 2015, this is emissions that comes from the decomposition of waste, of the organic material in our stormwater, the stormwater treatment plant. The water sector is emissions that are coming from water that's imported from Sonoma County. All of the other emissions that comes from the water that's, when we're pumping and conveying water within Marin, is actually embedded in the commercial sector. So here's a look at trend in community emissions over time, starting with 2005, and that's our baseline, the dotted line there, and you can see that emissions peaked in 2007 and then have been steadily going down from there. In fact, we're right now countywide at 17% below that baseline, which is terrific. Because as I mentioned earlier, most of our cities have goals to be 15%. And so this means that we've met that state goal of getting down to 1990 levels, and we've done it 5 years early. So that really is great news. These are kind of preliminary numbers. We're still fine-tuning them for 2015 for all of the jurisdictions, but what we're showing here is we've got emission reductions ranging from a high of 25% for the unincorporated area, and then it goes down to 10% for Sausalito, 10% reduction. Sausalito is in kind of a tough place because they have a lot of transportation emissions that's generated from their tourism industry. But all of the cities have at least met, or most of them I should say, have met that 15% threshold. Novato and Fairfax are at 14% reduction, so they're close behind. So we're doing really well. Looking at the sector reductions kind of helps to understand where most of our emissions reductions are coming from, and most of them, or the greatest majority, are coming from the residential energy sector and also the commercial energy sector. So I'm going to talk a little bit about natural gas use and electricity use to understand where those reductions are coming from. Also the transportation sector, we've got 10% decline there. Waste is 30%, water 100%, and that's because as I said, we're importing some water from Sonoma County. Sonoma County Water Agency is now using 100% renewable energy in their operations, and MMWD will be doing the same as of July. So that's why you have a 100% reduction there. So as promised, let's talk a little bit about electricity use. So countywide, electricity use has gone down 10% since 2005. This graph here is showing residential and commercial in blue along the bottom. Residential use is about a little less than half, 48% of all electricity use is used in homes. That's gone down 10%. The commercial electricity has gone down 9%. One thing that I've done here, and if you've heard my presentation before, I do this for all of the cities. This is, I think, is really interesting. What I've done is I've plotted the commercial electricity use against the Marin County unemployment rate, because oftentimes I get a question, well, how does the economy affect our energy use? It's a good question. The unemployment rate, so in the beginning when the unemployment rate is low and the economy is doing well, so that going back to 2005 to 2008, we had a great economy and our electricity use in the commercial sector was high. And then we hit the Great Recession around 2009, our unemployment rate went up, and then the electricity use in commercial sector went down. Kind of what you expected. But the really good news is that as the economy has improved, and in fact, here we're right back to where we were back in 2006 with really low unemployment, our electricity use has continued to stay down. So what that means is that all of the work that we've been doing to improve our energy efficiency and conserve energy is actually paying off. And hopefully this trend is going to continue in the future. We also see that solar is making some really great gains here in Marin County. We've got about 4,800 solar energy systems. This is all distributed solar here in Marin. Most of these are residential systems. Our capacity is growing at about 22% year over year right now. And so that's really good. In fact, if we just could keep up that rate, we could be producing 70% of our energy by the year 2030 just through solar alone. So electricity emissions are a factor of both electricity use and the carbon intensity of electricity. So emissions have declined 37% since 2005, which is really pretty amazing. And most of this is due to lower carbon intensity. Again, the electricity use declined 10%, so the rest of the 27% is because of the carbon intensity of the electricity. PG&E electricity is getting less carbon intensive over time. It was actually 17% less carbon intensive over 2005 in 2015. And then, of course, we have MCE here. It's carrying almost 70% of the total load in Marin County. And MCE electricity has reliably been less carbon intensive than PG&E over time. So in 2015, they were actually 18% less carbon intensive than PG&E. And just kind of as a little aside, about 2.3% of MC's load right now is deep green in Marin. And of course, it'd be great if we could do some more about increasing deep green subscriptions. Natural gas use and emissions. Emissions are the same. There's no emission factor for natural gas. It's the same. So that's declined 17% since 2005. Which seems like that would be really great news until you realize that natural gas use is highly correlated with outdoor temperatures. So here I've plotted our natural gas use, which is the blue bars against the heating degree days. That's a way of measuring the amount of heat that's needed to warm the inside of the building relative to the outdoor temperatures. So when the heating degree days, when the temperature is cold, we have high heating degree days. And what's it's showing here is that in 2014 and 2015, we had unusually warm years, and that's why our natural gas use went down. In fact, this is so highly correlated, it really ends up saying that we haven't done much to reduce our natural gas consumption at all, besides just in response to outdoor temperatures. In the transportation sector, vehicle miles traveled have decreased 7% since 2005. Transportation emissions have gone down a little bit more, so it's a total of 10%. So 3% of this is a decline due to improved vehicle fuel efficiency standards and low carbon fuel. So that means electric cars we're starting to use more. In 2015, though, only about 1/3% of the VMT, passenger VMT, was due to electric cars. So obviously we have a long way to go in that. And then finally, in waste disposal, overall, landfill waste has declined 26% since 2005. Again, I've plotted this against that Marin County unemployment rate, and it's showing something very similar to what we saw with the commercial electricity, and that is that as the economy has improved, our waste disposal has stayed relatively low. Now, it has gone up. It was at the lowest point in 2011, and we are starting to inch up again. So again, another area that we could probably do some more work on. So as a recap, our community emissions is that blue solid line here. The 2005 baseline is in yellow. The 2020 target, again, we've met that 2020 target, at least for most of our communities at this point. But then when you look out where we need to go, here's our 2030 goal, which is 40% below the blue line, and then our 2050 goal all the way down there. So you can see that we have a really long way to go to actually meet that 2050 goal. And again, that's the amount that we need to hit in order to reduce or to limit global warming to 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. So where do we go from here? Well, first of all, we're doing really well in reducing emissions from electricity. I think that's pretty clear. And we have some great things coming that is going to even drive emissions down further from this sector. MCE has a goal to provide greenhouse gas-free electricity by 2025. SB 350 is now requiring our electricity providers to have 50% of their electricity coming from renewable sources by 2030. So this is going to help to get PG&E's emission factor even lower. And then again, those year-over-year gains in distributed solar are we're really working to our favor. So essentially, if you look at where the emissions are coming from, this is again 2015 data, and let's say we just could cross out all of those emissions coming from the electricity sector, we would be at 30% below our 2005 emissions if we did that. Again, we're at 17% below. So that's as far as we're going to get. That's as much as we're going to be able to drive out of the electricity sector. So when you look to see where all the emissions are coming from, it's pretty clear that the work we need to do now is transportation and natural gas. There's some work we can do in waste and agriculture, but they're pretty small, relatively speaking. So where do we go from here? I just want to leave you with my 4 big takeaways. And these are things that, as we are updating our climate action plans, these are things that we're looking at as well and trying to figure out how the local governments can help accomplish this work. The first is we need to electrify our building heating systems and appliances and get them off of natural gas. And that's especially because our electricity is so clean and it's getting even cleaner. So the more of these appliances and systems that we can move over to electricity, the better. Secondly, in order to reduce our transportation emissions, we have to bike, we have to walk, and we have to take more public transportation. We also need to switch to electric vehicles. Marin County has the 2nd highest EV adoption rate in the county. We've got 11 vehicles per 1,000 residents here in Marin County. Santa Clara is the only one higher with 15, but that's way too low. We have to do a lot more work getting electric vehicles on the road. And then finally, in order to reduce those emissions from the waste, yes, that is Tamara. We need to eliminate organic waste sent to the landfills. And I know we want to eliminate all waste, but at least according to our greenhouse gas accounting, it's the organic waste that we really need to get out of the landfills. So I think that's it. All right. Okay, good.
All right. So thank you, Christine. We have time for a couple of quick questions. We're going to do most of our questions at the end, but if there's anything burning, Wendy? How do you measure emission reductions?
Okay, so carbon intensity, it's an emission. Does that work better? Okay. Okay. So when we're well, first of all, when we're measuring electricity emissions from electricity, we look at the kilowatt hours. So we get that number from PG&E and MCE. We know exactly how many kilowatt hours are being consumed in the county or each city. So we take that, and then we get an emission factor from all of the various electricity providers, MCE and PG&E. And the emission factor is a number that comes up from what the different kinds of sources that they're using in their electricity. So if somebody's using coal is very dirty, that's going to have higher greenhouse gas emissions. We don't use much coal, of course, here in California. But some forms like nuclear energy doesn't have any emissions, hydroelectric doesn't, any renewable, or at least it doesn't in our greenhouse gas accounting. But natural gas, electricity that comes from natural gas does have emissions. So it all depends on where the sources that are being used to generate the electricity and the amounts, the relative amount of sources. And then that is, all of those numbers are kind of crunched and we get an emission factor. So we multiply the kilowatt hours by the emission factor and then we know what the emissions are.
Okay, and the green coat.
Sacramento, San Francisco, LA have action plans to
San Francisco, LA, and Sacramento have climate action plans that we're aware of.
Yes, as far as I know, they do. Certainly San Francisco and Sacramento. And Dana's shaking her head, yes. Nodding her head, yes, I should say. Shaking.
The graphic said that PG&E had reduced their carbon intensity by 17%, and MCE had reduced the carbon intensity by 18% more than or less than PG&E. Could you do the math really quickly? Because I don't understand then what the absolute number would be for MCE compared to PG&E, except that it's 18% less. Or
Yes. So, okay, so MCE is 18% less carbon intensive than PG&E was in 2015. If you wanted to add them up, I guess we could say that MCE was 25% less carbon intensive than PG&E was in 2005.
Okay, we'll do one more question and then we can probably move on. One more time for questions.
Just wondering if you can speak a little bit about the complexities of how you measure transportation emissions and vehicle miles traveled. I know that's under change and it's the biggest number.
Wow. Got a half an hour? Well, one thing that's really interesting about transportation that it's the most difficult thing to measure. Because, you know, for natural gas or electricity, we know exactly how many kilowatt hours or therms that we're using. And transportation, the data is a little squishier. We've been using one particular data source over the years, and this year, in this 2015, we're switching over to a different methodology. It's one that's actually the preferred methodology in the protocol. Not to get too far deep in the woods, but what we're going to be doing is something called the origin destination method, and it's done through traffic modeling. And the traffic models tell us how many trips, how many trips start and end within the jurisdiction, and then how many trips start or end in the jurisdiction. So they either start in the jurisdiction and end somewhere else, or they start somewhere else and end in the jurisdiction. And they're associated with the number of miles for all of those trips. And then we're taking credit for half of those trips. So one of the things that we're doing is we're eliminating counting pass-through traffic, which is good because we want to just look at the traffic, the VMT that we have more control over. And that's, you know, where people are living and how far they have to travel to work or to get to whatever activity center they're trying to go to. So that's a big change that we're making in our 2015 inventories. And when we make these kind of changes, we go back and we recalculate everything from the beginning because you want to make sure you're doing an apples to apples comparison. Okay.
Thank you. Hold on to those questions. When we have the Q&A, those are great questions. We'll have a lot more opportunity to get into those. Let's do a quick hand poll. How many of you have actually taken direct advocacy on behalf of the environment, meaning that you went and spoke to a city council, you wrote a letter, you, we'll leave marches out of it for now, direct. Wonderful, very nice, good, okay. And how many have ever been to a town council meeting or a county board of supervisors meeting? Sweet, okay. How many of you have done resilient neighborhoods? Great. How many of you have more than 3 stickers on you right now? Wow, okay, good. So there's still opportunity for everybody. So later we'll have an opportunity, like I said, to get more badges. Now here's one thing that I'll ask you to do. We're going to take 2 minutes, and I'm going to ask you to talk fairly quietly, just lean into the person, but turn to somebody near you and look at the stickers that they have, and see if there's one that you don't have, and then ask that person about it, and that person should tell you what compelled them to take that action, and what was the best thing what's the best feeling they got out of taking that action. That's all it needs to be, just really quickly, and again, try to keep your voices low, and then I'll ring the cowbell when you're done. Great, thank you. Let's bring it back for the rest of the presentation. Wrap it up. That was fun. Was that fun? Wouldn't it be great? Yeah, and work out well. Wouldn't that be great if we had a room where half of the people hadn't taken any climate action and they were able to ask those questions? If we were to get some synchronicity with some folks that were like you and some folks that really hadn't done much but had an inclination about climate change. Okay, so now it's my great pleasure to introduce County Sustainability Planner Dana Armanio. She is my go-to person when I need data, when I need analysis, when I need opinions about things. She's kind of the quiet, unsung hero for sustainability in Marin. She does so much that we all rely on. She runs the Green Business Program. She coordinates the Bay Area Regional Energy Network for Marin County. She oversees the Marin Energy Watch Partnership. Remember that slide about the electricity dropping that Christine showed? That kind of stuff can be attributed to Dana's work. She oversees development and implementation of the county CAP as well as their GHG inventories. And a couple fun facts about Dana. She was a rafting guide for several years in Colorado. She loves soccer and biking and pretty much anything outdoors. And as we know, the more connection you have to outdoors, the more you want to be a steward for the planet, right? And unlike many of us, she's a native Marinite. So without further ado, let's give it up for Dana Armanio. And move that around to find the best spot.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys for having me, and I hope I don't bore you too much because I recognize a lot of friendly faces out there, so you're probably familiar with the county programs and resources, but hopefully if I can entertain you for a little bit, you might be able to learn about one new one that might intrigue you and you might want to take an action with. So what I want to do fairly quickly is kind of go through some of the resources that the county, the cities, our Energy Watch Partnership, Bayren, MCE, all of these great programs and resources that are available to help you help us bring those emissions down. And so the first stop on our tour is energy. This is the Bay Area Regional Energy Network's mascot Nugget. Very popular with the kids at events, and we've actually gone through quite a few posters of him, sadly. He tends to lose an ear regularly. One of our programs we've actually had operating in Marin County since 2006 is the California Youth Energy Services Program. It's run by Rising Sun Energy Center over in Berkeley. And what they do is they come over to Marin every spring through the summertime and they train our Marin youth, age 15 to 22, to be energy specialists. And they'll actually perform through the summer months greenhouse calls at no cost to our homeowners and our renters, PG&E customers and MCE customers. It's open to everybody. And what they'll do, they do job training for the kids, then they do energy training for them as well. They set them loose, they go do those greenhouse calls. They can, on the spot, replace incandescent light bulbs with LEDs, CFLs. They can change out water fixtures. They've partnered with both of our water districts, so they can replace shower heads, aerators right on the spot. They've got power strips, clotheslines, great program. They have served over 5,500 homes in Marin County since 2006, and they've trained over, I believe, 200 Marin youths since 2006, and some have gone on to do environmental degrees and other work. So we're really proud of that program. And Hope's back there, so be sure to stop by, sign up, because they've only got so many slots this summer. So if you haven't done it yet, even if you think you've switched out everything, it's still good to stop by and talk to her. For folks that maybe have already switched out those light bulbs, but they're looking for maybe deeper energy savings or making their home a little bit more comfortable, we've got the Energy Upgrade California program. It's a more comprehensive look at the house as a system. How do the heating and cooling systems work with the insulation, the building shell, to make sure that the furnace isn't working too hard, that you're not heating the rest of the world by having a lot of air leaks, so that all of that nice hot, warm air that you've created is just going out the windows and door cracks and everything. The program trains contractors to be able to go in and test your house and actually then develop a roadmap for implementation that you might want to do. I did a test on my house a few years ago, was able to find out that my furnace was actually extremely oversized for my home. The contractor just kind of threw one in there, thought it would work, but every time I turn that thing on, it works extra hard and it really doesn't need to. So When it is time for me to replace it, I now know what size I need to do. But at the time, my budget said, okay, I can do air gap or I can do leak repair and insulation, and my house is a lot more comfortable now. My friends joke that they don't have to wear down jackets there anymore, so bonus on my social life. So to help you navigate these programs, we've got some tools for you. The Bay Area Regional Energy Network, it's the network of 9 Bay Area counties working together on these programs, sponsors a group called the Home Upgrade Advisor. And basically what it is, it's your advisor. You call a 1-800 number. You'll be connected with an advisor who can walk you through the whole process. Be your expert on building science as you start working with contractors. They're not affiliated with any contractors, so they're not trying to sell you anything. They're just trying to answer your questions. Maybe you're not quite sure if you're ready to get started. They can help you navigate to maybe the CYES program or something else. But they're just a really good, gentle way to start, not a salesman-y thing. For more of the do-it-yourselfers, there is the PG&E Home Survey tool where you build a virtual version of your house and you can see what opportunities might be there, what rebates might be available. The County of Marin Energy page has all of this information, so you don't have to scribble it down. And we also created this toolkit that goes through all of these programs as well, and that's available at the back. So do we have any business owners in the room or business managers? So for you guys, we've got the Smart Lights program. Has anyone participated in that program? There we go. Action item for you. So this program, it's co-sponsored by the county, PG&E, and MCE, and they do a no-cost assessment of your business to see what energy efficiency opportunities might be there. They can provide rebates directly to the contractor, and they can help walk you through that whole process as well. They can even bring in the contractor if you don't want to deal with that. One of my favorite phrases is reduce, then produce. So now we've reduced your energy use. How about we produce some of it? So you have a couple options there. You could actually install solar on your home or your business. We've got some tools for that. There's marinsolar.org. That's the county's solar website. And there's a tool there called Project Sunroof. It's a Google product where you just, like a Google map, enter your address and it'll zoom in on your house, let you know what solar potential is there. And it can walk you through the financial analysis. You can dial in what your average monthly electric bill is, and it can kind of give you an initial idea of what it might cost and how it might pay for itself, help you evaluate different ways to pay for it. The county, or me actually, also can act as your solar upgrade advisor. And as you're starting to talk to contractors, you're always welcome to call me with questions. Again, I'm not affiliated. I'm just there to help you navigate the process. If you live in a place where maybe you can't put solar on your home, you're in an apartment, or you don't have the right siting capability, there's MCE's Deep Green program, there's Local Sol, and one thing that I think is kind of fun is PG&E finally figured out that they should probably give people some choices. So they have a solar program as well, so that's an option for you as well. In the water area, both of our water districts offer no-cost home and business water assessments. They'll come out, they'll look for leaks, they'll check indoor and outdoor water use, identify savings opportunities for you, let you know if there's rebates available, and sometimes they can switch out those aerators right for you on the spot. So definitely take a tour with them. On the waste side, we've got the waste folks here. Zero Waste Marin is a great resource for identifying what to do, how to find a reuse home or a recycle home for odds and ends. And you'll see in the Marin tracker that the cities and the county have all passed ordinances to deal with plastic bags, polystyrene. So we're really trying to work on that sector as well. And then for transportation, as we've noted, it is a huge wedge, and we are not going to reach our goals until we tackle it. So we've got a lot of resources in the county for getting out of your car, walking, biking. Transportation Authority of Marin has a great program for removing that barrier of concern where it's, I walked to work or I took the bus to work, and now there's an emergency, I've got to get home. I should just drive. What they've got is the Emergency Ride Home program. You get your employer to sign up, and you can take a cab and get reimbursed. So it's no cost to your employer, no cost to you. Great resource. A lot of Marin businesses are already signed up, and you should check that one out. Make sure yours is on there. And then we've got some great electric vehicles out there. I drive an i3. I'm never going back to an internal combustion engine again. It is so fun. So definitely at least take a test drive, because they're pretty fun to drive. And then also the counties really and the cities are really trying to build out that EV charging network, so reduce the range anxiety a bit. Support local. So we've got I was looking at our farmers market schedule. I think there's a farmers market just about every day of the week except Monday. So let me know if you found a Monday one yet. Carbon farming. So we've emitted all this carbon. We're going to try and reduce our emissions. We've also got to find a way to pull it out of the atmosphere. We're working with the Marin Carbon Project and our ranchers to try and actually do some carbon farm implementation and pull some of that carbon out of the atmosphere. And then very important that you guys are active and participating. We are, the county is also, and all the cities, working on a vulnerability assessment for, we are going to experience some sea level rise, and what are we going to do about it? This is now starting to be, unfortunately, a more common picture in the Manzanita area. So, it's marinslr.org, by the way. I don't know how to get rid of the bottom thing. We're 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Yeah. So it's this Saturday at 10 a.m. You'll be out at 12 p.m. But please come. It's up in Nevada. You're going to learn about the vulnerability assessment. Even if you live up in the hills and you think, my house is going to be just fine, how are you going to get out of town if the road is like that? And a little bit more less pleasant, what happens when you flush the toilet and your wastewater treatment plant is also underneath all of that? So it really is going to affect all of us, whether you're in the lowlands or not. So it's very important that we all start participating now. It's, as I've heard called it many times, it's a slow-moving disaster, so it's important that we start working on it now. And then just threw a ton of information at you all, but there's a lot of tools that'll pull it all together for you so you're not kind of navigating it on your own. There's the wonderful Resilient Neighborhoods group where they go through all of this together with your eco team in 5 meetings and kind of bolster each other up, motivate each other, and based on the pictures I've been seeing and the names of their teams, it's a lot of fun. So highly recommend it. Also, they work on disaster preparedness and building that community so that if something were to happen, you've got your neighbors and your team right there. So huge fan. Then, as I mentioned, we've also got this guidebook that kind of brings everything together. It can sit in your junk drawer and be ready for you when you're ready to make that decision, or it can be a workbook where you just start knocking things out. And for the businesses, there is our Green Business Program. Similarly, tries to bring things together and guides businesses through energy, waste reduction, pollution prevention, water conservation, and provides them with a roadmap for reducing their footprint. Once they get done with it, they can, if they meet all the requirements, they then get promoted as a green business to the community. And that's where I ended up. And since it has been thrown around that perhaps this is all a hoax by the Chinese, this is one of my favorite cartoons. So.
So even though it says questions, we're going to do the questions at the end, but let's quickly, just if there's 1 or 2 burning questions, we're going to. We do. Well, not slides, but we have online. We have the online tracker, so we're going to use the projector still. Any burning questions before we go into our activity? Okay, good. Then we'll hold them to the end. All right. So this is our big opportunity. This is our significant engagement process where you get to get more badges. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for, we're going to do about 20 minutes, but I think maybe 10 or 15 will be enough since there's so many, not that many people, and since we have so many people with badges already. But what I want you to do is think about I'm going to tell you what are all these tables, and think about one more that you want to do. It can be two. If you can do two, that's fine. They're everything from single actions that are really easy to signing up for a Resilient Neighborhood Eco Team, which is the comprehensive thing as well. They're some of the most impactful actions that we culled from the list that we have on our marinclimate.org website. And you know, after all, if we're going to learn about stuff, we might as well take action as well, right? We can make an impact. So I'm going to tell you about the tablers. When I say their names, I want them to make some noise so that you can see which one I'm talking about. So we'll start with switching to deep green electricity. So we have from Marin Clean Energy, J.R. Killigrew and Jenna Famular. Let's make, where'd they go? We're going to start with kitchen composting, actually, right here. We'll start at the end. This is Alex Montes. Alex is our Climate Corps Bay Area Fellow. He's just finishing up his fellowship program with us. He's done a ton of zero waste activity. As we said in that slide, the one impactful thing you can do around waste, the most impactful thing, is get that kitchen food scraps, all that organic waste out of the landfill. So that's one, and so that's one that you can do. The next one is to participate in resilient neighborhoods. We have Tamara Peters and Dara Rosef Powell. And there you can sign up to commit to taking a Resilient Neighborhoods Eco Team. You can do an online project sunroof assessment in the back with the County Energy Watch folks, Alice Zandmiller and Sabrina Siacom. You want to raise your hands and give a shout out? There we go. All right. You can sign up to do a home energy audit or have Rising Sun come and do a greenhouse call with you. Let's give it up for Kellen Daman and Hope Couples. Right. And finally, you can sign up to test drive a zero emissions vehicle. You can commit to doing that tonight. And we have Carlene Cullen from Cool the Earth, Jeff Cullen, and Peg, I wrote the name, Mallory, yay, here we go. And then hopefully JR comes back soon. JR, are you in the room? Okay, well anyway, you can sign up for MCE to go deep green, and it's really fast and easy. They make it so simple now.
That was such a fun little engagement exercise. I really loved that. Thank you for doing that, Cory. Okay, so I wanted to just give you a really quick online demonstration of the Marin Sustainability Tracker. It's this really cool tool that we developed a couple of years ago, and we just updated it. So this is actually brand new. We just relaunched it a couple of days ago. And we did this for a couple of reasons. First of all, we wanted to have a way, kind of a really entertaining, interactive way to communicate to everybody all the things that we're doing, our sustainability initiatives, and to help track progress over time. We also kind of wanted to set up a little competition among the cities and get them to say, wow, this other town has got so many streetlights converted to LED, we should be doing the same thing. And so kind of anecdotally, I've been hearing we've been making a little bit of impact along those lines. So that's been another goal of ours. So the Marin Tracker is at marintracker.org, and when you open it up, you're going to see this page. And we are looking at 12 different sustainability metrics, and they're organized under 5 different categories, which are up here. So I'll just, if you click on a category, it's going to take you down to our subcategories, and I'll just show you a few of them. So here's solar, for example. How does that look in there? Okay. It's not coming up great because of, let me see if I can go. It looks a little better on my computer screen than what's showing up here. The boxes are a little bigger because of the conversion through the projector. But anyway, so the solar is one of our metrics. So here what we're looking at is the amount of distributed solar capacity per resident. And so we use that at measurements that we compare across all of the cities and towns. And so the map will show you how much solar is installed. And if you go down here, you can click on this, and it's going to show you over time how greener we're getting, how much more solar capacity is being added. So we have data that goes back from 2000 all the way up to 2015. And you can, this is not going to slide. Okay, I just can't reach it over here. So what you can do is you can take your mouse and hover over the different cities and find out what is this data that's specific to that city. I'm sorry, was there a question? Okay, and so that is solar. And then let's look at household energy. Here's another one. And so this is looking at energy use, electricity and natural gas in the households. And this one, we've got one of our big outliers over here, which is the town of Ross, at 160 million BTU per household. Most of the other cities are around 60, so that's why they're sticking out there like a sore thumb. For streetlights, now some of our metrics are not, we don't have years of data, so we're just like for streetlights, we're looking at the amount of lights, the percentage of lights that the cities have converted to LED. And so here, our winner is Novato at 100%. All streetlights have been converted to LED, and unincorporated area is a close second at 93%. Corte Madera is, that's what I was talking about, that little competition that we got going, right? There's always room to improve. And then let's take a look at our energy efficiency program. So there's a couple of metrics here where what we've done is we're looking at all the different kinds of programs that can be implemented by a city, by the cities and towns. So if I look at here, I think our winner is San Anselmo. So we're tracking 5 different programs, and San Anselmo is actually implementing all of them. So they get a 5 rating. They've got 100%, they've gone deep green. They've got a solar energy system. They've adopted green building regulations that are more stringent than the state code. They've enabled PACE, the property assessed clean energy program, and to operate within their jurisdiction, and they're also an MCE member, so they have 5. So you can compare all of the cities by just scrolling around. If we go to, let's say, transportation, this is kind of a cool one, the electric vehicle charging stations. So this is showing the amount of the number of EV stations per 1,000 residents. Our winner here is actually Belvedere, because they have 3 EV stations, they have such a small population. 1.2. San Rafael actually has 71 EV stations, so I think they have the most EV stations. Yeah, Nevada's got 32, so they're almost double what Novato has. And then some of our metrics, like waste, for example, some of these we only have data on a countywide basis. So in that case, that's because all of the cities and towns report as one entity to CalRecycle. But we do have data going back to 2005, so you can see how that's changed over time as well. So I'm going to leave the other one so you can go home and kind of play with this yourself. Again, it's marintracker.org. If you ever have any questions on how to operate this, you can go here, and we've got some a little tutorial on how to navigate around the system. And then we also have, this is kind of new, you can download data. You can download a PDF file or an Excel file, and you can get all of the data that's shown here and use that to your heart's content. So, any questions on this? All right. Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. And then it will bring you back to our website. And it can tell you if you want more tips on what you can do, what residents can do, and then we have a page for what businesses can do too. Here's the businesses page. And back to home. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll bring up the lights, and then David's going to lead us in a little Q&A. We can have a little bit more discussion. And then David Kuhnhart is going to go over some other ways on how you can engage elected officials of your city, county, and town, and help to drive the activities that we do.
Let's hear it for our presenters today. All 3 of you over here. The Environmental Forum of Marin, it has for 45 years this coming month been dedicated to bringing science that leads to advocacy. And this is a perfect example of individuals who have gone through the science program and have now really pushed on advocacy. And so, but Cory is not the only person here who's done master class who's also gone on to advocacy. I did it. Sarah, would you put your hand up, please? Another person from the most recent class is going jurisdiction to jurisdiction with a pal of hers, Helene Marsh, Sarah Lofgren, and they are advocating for each jurisdiction to put its meters into deep green. And so far they've gotten 2 affirmative votes, including here in Corte Madera and over in Larkspur, quite amazing, and pending votes in the county and San Rafael and so forth to join the 4 communities that are already in deep green. We're going to get right into your questions now. And there is a there is a mic behind you. Nona is first. She had her hand up first.
Okay, before we start.
Just right, eat the mic.
Hello.
Yes, it's working.
Okay, all right, up and close. Before we congratulate ourselves too much on our reduction, I continue to be concerned that we're not working into the calculus embedded energy, or embedded energy, I'm trying to speak right into it, embedded energy and exported energy consumption, exported greenhouse gas emissions that are produced as the consequence of our consumption. So how are you dealing with those unaccounted for expenses?
Good question. Who wants that?
Test.
It's on?
Yes,
Okay.
that one's on.
So the inventories that we do, we're doing them according to the U.S. Community Protocol. The consumption-based inventories are really kind of, they're in their infancy, shall I say. There is one that was being done for California, and the way they do them is they're looking at the household income. And then all of the other, they make assumptions about how many airplane travel, air travel miles you're doing and how much you're purchasing. And then they'll come up with a number. But really the only way to reduce your emissions according to this inventory is to reduce your income. So it's a very interesting thing to see, but it's not very useful for us. We can't. And yes, and Marin County would certainly have really high emissions because of that. Now, because we're looking at all the emissions that are being created within our city, if all of the cities were doing it around the world this way, all of the emissions would be captured. So it's just a different way of adding it up. But that's not to say that, the consumption base is it is very important to recognize that we do have a lot of emissions that are being created through airplane travel and just through products that we're purchasing and that are being made somewhere else.
I'll also jump in there.
Go ahead.
Hello. I'll also jump in and agree that it is a vital exercise that was very useful in hopefully awakening a lot of people to the choices that they're making and how their consumption behaviors impact the world, and can also help inform programmatic decisions. The fact that we need more reuse, and we need to promote reuse and finding a second life for things so that we don't live in a disposable economy. Where it can be challenging is it's not as useful when designing those programmatic things to then go back and do a new consumption inventory 5 years later, because again, the biggest driver is income in that model. So you're not going to see where setting up a reuse marketplace reduce those emissions in that specific model. But I think they're vitally important for us to get into our consciousness and then also promote those things that are going to reduce consumption.
Nona, I'm going to ask a question of the questioner. By using the phrase embedded energy, which I always take to mean the energy that's embedded in any product that you use, such as how much energy does it take to make one type of car as opposed to another, which are generally equal with one another. Were you also saying we in Marin have a large carbon footprint as... Okay. Yeah, and does any of you wish to get into the territory of land use and let's say, the much greater carbon footprint per person for urban sprawl, hillside living, large homes, multiple SUVs in the driveway? and I'm going to bring it back to things that you taught us today. 54% of our emissions from transportation. So it's the biggest slice of the pie that we've got to address and do something with, right?
I mean, that's a lot of questions in that. I'll just say that for me, a consumption-based inventory is a great narrative tool. As Dana said, it's hard to measure that and put plans into place and take actions and then see the reductions that are happening using that tool. Plus, it's not being used worldwide. So it's a very, very helpful tool, but it's very, it's a narrative. It's a good narrative tool. It's very important for us to pay attention to. So yeah, then we can have conversations about land use. We can have conversations about all the consumption we do. We can have conversations about meat eating and travel and all those things which are very important. And then you can go back to programs like Resilient Neighborhoods and you can say, well, we know narratively that these are really bad things. We may not be able to capture them very accurately and scientifically, but we know that they're causing a lot of problems. And here are some things that we can do to reduce them. Because our greenhouse gas inventories are using an international protocol, we can add them up, we can aggregate them, and that's very important from a policy and a implementation perspective from a government, at least. Good.
Phyllis had her hand up second.
Oh, thank you.
Put it right close.
Okay. Where does the leadership come from that is making people more aware of their personal behavior and their personal activities? Is it from the cities, the city councils, from the county? It would appear that the county is leading the efforts, but I'm just curious.
Are asking for who is the leadership who is going to say to everyone, you're consuming too much and please stop? Or I guess
no, I think there is probably some leadership in the county that is saying we are all using too much, and here are areas and ways in which we can reduce our personal consumption. And I'm just wondering where the leadership is coming. With the statistics that you've put up, it's clear that there are changes being made in the behavior of people in the county.
Yeah.
So where is the leadership coming from is the question.
Well, I mean, I know that the County Board of Supervisors has been, all of them over the years, ever since I started with the county in 2003, it has been one of their top priorities. They've pushed it. Sustainability was a cornerstone of our countywide plan that we adopted in 2007. We had the big chart in there that showed that Marin is consuming 5 Earths. So we're definitely trying to push that, put it out there, and put the programs out there. On consumption base, so adding that as a metric to the tracker type thing. It would be interesting, and who doesn't love a little competition? The challenge I see with that is that, again, that the metric that we have that models consumption, the emissions associated with consumption, is based on income levels. So I don't know which city council person is going to win re-election by telling his constituents that they need to lower their income in order to win. So that one might be a little tougher. But, you know, it is an idea that maybe we find a different way to model that.
If you want to know who the leaders are, just look around, as far as I'm concerned. Our elected officials got there and are making these choices because community members are demanding it and community members are electing them. So when you look at leadership, I look around this room, I see leaders I know most of you and most of what you've done and how you've influenced policy decisions. So, and that is the only way that we get these results, is because people like you are speaking up and are wanting this type of thing to happen. So that's my perspective on leadership.
Tamara.
I wanted to respond to Nona's question about resilient neighborhoods. We actually deal with the consumption, purchasing decisions, and things like food decisions. Food decisions, you can quantify carbon pounds by the kind of food you eat if it's meat products, and moving to a more vegetarian diet. We created something called resilience points for things that couldn't be measured, like the kinds of things you purchase, if you are recirculating your clothes and not going to secondhand shops and all that. So we created resilience points so you can kind of quantify doing important things that decrease your consumption and make you more in the flow of Earth's systems, really.
Front row. Nita?
Question about not only consumption, it's also population. It's the elephant in the room that nobody talks about. Has the county looked at, are these affluent families getting bigger, staying the same, getting smaller, therefore their consumption, if it's based on income, could be going down or could be going up? Also, the whole issue of population in general that we need to worldwide encourage family planning. And I know we don't have a government in there right now that's supporting that. They actually pulled all the funding out of that. And there are people within the county that could be supported with family planning, which is really good for families in a lot of different ways.
Okay, that's a big question. Anybody willing to jump in?
Well, I'll tackle the Marin County perspective at least. I think maybe some of you saw there was a news article recently where the American Community surveyed their latest estimates is that the population in Marin County actually went down this past year. And so, those are estimates, and we'll see what happens next year, of course. But the projections for Marin County is that we're just not growing very much. And what we are doing is we're getting older. We're getting a lot grayer. Our senior population is getting much larger and will through 2040. And what typically happens with an older graying population is that they drive less, they start dropping out of the workforce because they're retiring, and they consume less as well. So those kind of broader demographic trends, I think, are actually going to help to reduce emissions, at least here in Marin County, just for that reason. The household size, the projections that I've seen they're generally hold the same, and we're at about 2.3 or 2.4 people per family here in Marin County. And when I look at projections there, it's constant going forward.
How many vehicles per family do we have?
I don't know. Does anybody know? I've heard it's high, but I don't.
We have
Too
a question
many,
over here.
but I don't
David, we
know
have a
that.
question over here.
From Carlene? I was going to ask Carlene a question. How do we persuade more people to drive electric vehicles? Because that's obviously the biggest thing we need to do. Carlene Cullen from Cool Earth.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Hi. So, the consumption issue, I know, is multifaceted, but in terms of transportation and what we need to do, consumption of oil is way, way, way more, and you can see one of these charts or take a picture of it, of an issue than it is to actually buy a new electric vehicle, including the battery. That is from the Union of Concerned Scientists. I have a link I can give you a link. It's a 60-page research peer-reviewed document that goes from extraction of the original steel and the lithium ion, the production of it, all the way through driving the vehicle and disposal or reuse and reuse or recycle of the battery or of an internal combustion engine car. So I think one of the things that I hear a lot in environmental meetings is that, well, it's better to continue to drive my gas car from an emissions perspective. I know there are also economic issues to consider, but from a pure carbon perspective, it's actually better. You can see on this chart over here, if you want to take a picture or come and look at it later, within anywhere from 6 months to 30 months, you get a replacement of the break even for the building of the new EV and downcycling your gas car. So we're starting a new program, a countywide campaign in the fall to help Marin learn about electric vehicles, charging, range issues, all sorts of things, incentives. And so we've been working in the county for a decade more on children, working with children and teaching their parents things. So we're going to be now building to that as well. So I think it's just a consumption, but oil is the worst consumption that we do.
And there's another aspect to that, which is that all of the oil, all of the gas, oil, and diesel that we buy goes out of our counties. It's estimated that Marin and Sonoma counties together on an annual basis spend over $400 million on diesel, oil, and gas. All of that money goes elsewhere, to Texas, the Middle East, you name it. As we convert to local sources, to locally generated electrical vehicles, more of that money will stay here. And we will have the opportunity to have more resources to do better stuff here if we're not putting all that money away. Now, there was somebody else who had their hand up. Nancy.
Get over here. Just to piggyback off Carlene on electric vehicles, I recently became an owner of a Bolt. Carlene has a Bolt. Valerie has a Bolt. So we've got 3 Bolt owners in this room. I have to tell you, after you've driven an electric car, you will not want to drive a gas car again. The experience is incredible. Also, with the Bolt, and I'm not necessarily pushing bolts.
Now, what about that experience? Is it the quietness? Is it?
No, there are no gears. So, wow, you just go when you put your foot on the gas.
So it's the speed. You like the speed.
But also the slowing down. It has regenerative braking. So when you take your foot off the gas pedal, the car slows down. We don't use our brakes. So 150,000 miles is the first time to take it in for work on it, and it's an air filter or something that needs to be taken care of. You don't wear things out in these cars. But one of the big hang-ups for us is we live in a condo, and we can't put in a charging station. So it's like, well, how are we going to charge this thing? We finally decided not to let that get in our way. There is a huge, great infrastructure here in Marin County of charging stations, which we saw on one of those maps. And there are free charging stations around, too. So people in this room, just know, Marin Rowing has 2 free chargers. San Anselmo has a parking area off the main street with 4 free chargers. We take our Bolt to Thursdays and Sundays to charge them free. The range is 230 miles, and we actually got 250. So we have no problem whatsoever. Our gas car, we have put gas in it twice since January. And that's it. So I just want to kind of advocate for electric cars. They're absolutely fabulous. And you've got people signed up for test drives, right? Not enough, though. Oh, okay. Because mine's available for test drives, too.
Let's turn both of these excellent bits of advice into a question for the panel. If our biggest slice of the greenhouse gas producing pie is transportation, how are we going to get into some of the millions of personal and, in America, very private decisions about transportation and start changing those, other than having the testimonials that are so excellent? How do we do that?
Well, I think one of the ways we do that is through the building code, and this is something that cities and towns can do to kind of push it a little further, because the building code right now just requires that there's conduit, basically raceways, so that a business, a commercial building, or a resident can put in an electric vehicle charger in the future. But if we actually had regulations that mandated that new homes have electric vehicle chargers put in them, or that a business, when there's a new business or they're renovating their parking lot, that they have to put in electric vehicle chargers. I think that would be really helpful. I think it is just expanding the infrastructure so that people are comfortable. They see electric vehicle chargers everywhere. I think that would go a long way to helping to increase the adoption rate.
One of you has to get an electric vehicle or more, or 2 or 3 into the May parade of classic cars.
You know, we did that a couple of years with Golden Gate Electric Vehicle Association.
You did? Oh,
I
great.
think you're right. Here in Marin, EVs are going to be an important piece. I think there's a couple of things that we need to look at, though, is what are the obstacles and how can we overcome them? And I think most of those obstacles are really in the market. It has to do with the variety of types. If I were to go out and buy a car right now, I'd have maybe 6 different electric vehicles to choose from in Marin and hundreds of all these different types of cars that have all these whiz-bang things that people are used to. So if we really want the uptake, that's a piece of it, is as the industry develops more cars that can accomplish more things, more people will have that as a choice for them as well. The infrastructure is important. That's something we can do locally. And then the state mandates for requiring more and more stringent vehicle requirements and efficiency requirements. As those ramp up, that's going to drive it as well. It's kind of one of those big problems that's harder for a small jurisdiction to tackle. We can support it and encourage it. We can advocate for it on the local level. But it's sort of some bigger issues, I think, that are going to help drive that. And then what we can do, and what's really difficult, is getting people out of their cars. People hate traffic. How can we leverage that to get people out of their cars anyway, to enjoy their experience on their way to work or on their way to do things, rather than being stuck in a car and, cursing about the other traffic. So those are some of the things that we are starting to look at with Transportation Authority of Marin too, and Smart Starting. So.
Okay.
I noticed that there are several, maybe 2 alternative fuel vehicles running on hydrogen available now. Does anyone know how ecologically friendly, environmentally friendly the production of hydrogen is at this point?
It's not a positive answer.
Sorry. I'll just respond to that. So I have to say, first of all, as an organization, we're really quite agnostic about whether it's hydrogen or electricity or what the technology is. One of our board members, who's an engineer, looked in depth at the hydrogen, because I thought initially, test drive the Marin, it was really exciting, the hydrogen fuel cell, because it can eliminate some of the issues that are present with the EVs. And unfortunately, the way producing the hydrogen itself is so energy intensive that it is so wholly inefficient that it is not, from a carbon perspective, it is not a viable solution. That's not to say that it might not advance in the future, but right now, from an environmental perspective, I would not recommend a hydrogen fuel cell car.
Elon Musk recommends against it too, but he's biased. Larry?
So on transportation, what projection are the smart train? How's that going to fit into this picture, and what's the limitations and projections on that?
We shall see. With anything, there are unintended consequences as well. So we hope a lot of people will ride it, and we hope that cuts down on some of the congestion, because that's a key factor as well. Like I said, we're working with TAM for first and last mile things. What we have control of here in the county is our sort of last mile, because people are going to be commuting in more, at least into San Rafael. And so we have control over working with TAM to try to get last mile. So they've just engaged Lyft with a contract so that they will pay up to $5 for a Lyft ride to get you to your workplace or to where you need to go when you land in downtown San Rafael, which is very exciting. They're applying for a bike share program as well. So we need to tackle that. The difficulty is in the Sonoma side, where there's not any parking lots in some of these smart stations. It's really difficult to get to them. And so people have to be able to get to the smart station and feel like they can park there and it's going to be worth their time and while as well. Smart did reorganize how they're doing their pricing, and now you can buy a monthly pass that's unlimited for, it'll be $200 a month when they get to the stage where it's at their set price. So that's going to be very helpful. And we're working with our jurisdictions, with our employees, trying to get them on the train. I know the county has a very robust program right now that they've already launched that's going to support smart. We're in the process of doing that, and the county Office of Education is working on that as well. We're trying to combine our efforts to make sure that we can leverage resources together.
Okay, you said Bill. That's Tamara.
No, I said they were competing for the next question. And I won. I just wanted to respond to the question about how you get people to buy EVs, you get them into changing personally, get into their household. And the beauty of doing resilient neighborhoods, but doing things with a group and talking about these decisions. And a team we just completed, one woman decided she was going to get an EV, e-Golf, and she came into a meeting and she announced that she could lease one for $69 a month and gave the details, and it got 2 other people wanting to do it too, and they were talking about carpooling down to buy EVs.
$69 a month. Somebody's subsidizing that. Did you say? Oh, Volkswagen. Okay, that's where the billions of dollars okay, guilt money. Okay.
Okay, our next question.
Next question, Bill Carney, Citizen of the Year, co-Citizen of the Year.
Co-Citizen of the Year, yeah. Let's see, this I think is a question, but it was mostly a plug for something that was said about the importance of going to talk to the people making the decisions in government, right? And the importance of all of us to show up at council meetings and supervisors meetings and get them to make what may seem like small changes, but they can be very significant, like the one that Christine mentioned about building codes. And I'm sure Dana and Cory could mention a dozen other things within building codes that localities do have control over that could move the consumer along and make it the norm to have an EV in the car because I've got an energy source in the garage, because I've got an energy source in the garage. So likewise, anyway, I guess my question is, do you see other things at the government level that we could all come out and testify for? And one other hint would be mandatory organic recycling, which was also mentioned.
Mandatory organics.
So I'll jump in, and I want to thank all the folks that came on Monday and spoke in favor of the county going deep green. I can get up there and do a presentation with slides and numbers and state the facts and why the county should do it, but it was really beneficial to actually have the board hear from you all and say this is what we want. So thank you for doing that on Monday. Keep doing it at the board and at all of the city councils. To answer that question, I think having advocates that are speaking in favor of definitely the things that have been mentioned and the organic recycling, and then also the more touchier items like that, I know eventually we've got to tackle natural gas. We're going to have to move away from natural gas, get people to go all electric in their homes. That is forcing personal choices. People like their giant gas ranges. That one is going to be tough, and there's going to be political fallout, and it's going to be up to you guys to push for that. So I would be thinking along those lines of we've got to get to all electric, and it's going to take all of us to get there.
We're going to have a future forum on a cooking class with induction cooking, which is every bit as responsive as gas. So.
I just wanted to say, I have been so impressed with, is Sarah still here or did she leave? Sarah and Helene Marsh, okay, who have been going to, I've been doing these presentations on the greenhouse gas inventories to all of the communities, and they've been following with their plea to get the cities to go deep green. And I think all of the cities at this point, I know somebody mentioned that 3 of them, but I think all of them have put on their agendas that they're going to have a discussion about this for this budget cycle. And we timed it so that they would do it, right before the budget cycle.
There's one holdout. If there's any residents of Tiburon here, Tiburon's holding out and saying no so far.
Okay, all right, but still, with all the other ones, if that's the case, I mean, they've made just incredible progress, and this is something that just a couple of years ago, I mean, there were very few communities wanting to do it. So it's just a testament for how important it really is to show up, because as Dana said, the staff can, they want this, but they can't advocate for it. So. And I think one thing that everyone can do every year, the cities should be reviewing their climate action plan, and when they do that, you can go to those meetings. You can, or find if they don't review it, at least find a program that you want to see enacted, and go and just talk about it at the council meeting. Go up for the first 3 minutes in the beginning when they're doing public comment, and just bring something up. And then hopefully the council will at least circle back to that at another meeting and talk about it. But it really is important that you show up at the council meetings and have your voices heard.
Last question, Cory. One of the things that you said almost in passing was economics, of course, will be more powerful than policy. And this is one reason why solar has been so successful, because the economics have gotten so much better. But if that's the case, why not this?
You're asking me to talk about something you know most about?
This goes way beyond our county, right? It's got to be a national policy. But I just got to ask everybody, why not? If economics is going to guide so many of our decisions, why not that?
Well, first of all, I don't mean to be cavalier about it and say that that's for everything, that's the way. I mean, we talked about a lot of things that we've done, that cities have done, that have helped drive a lot of change. But yeah, on the national level, it's tough when you have different politics in different places. So
this is something that could still pass in the new administration, I think.
That's true. Thank you.
Okay, we want to be respectful of your time, and we need to, I just want to mention a couple of things that are upcoming. First of all, in this room in 3 weeks, the Environmental Forum of Marin is going to celebrate its 45th anniversary. Any of you who is a member, on Sunday the 21st, it's right up here, it's Sunday. It's definitely not Saturday. It is Sunday, May 21st. May 21st is correct, 3:30 here. If you are a member, by all means, come. If you are thinking about becoming a member, by all means, come. One of the things that's going to be announced at that time is that there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment in the programs of the Environmental Forum, and that is that we're aiming to absolutely have a master class, as we have done in the past, because that's for 45 years, because that's so successful. But we're going to lead towards more diverse fora of not just speeches, but also multimedia events. I thought this tonight was really great. I really thought that this was great. But we are also going to, for example, have a film night, which will be for both people in the class and the public. We are considering a multimedia music and ocean night that focuses on sound damage to mammals in the oceans and other, which could be pretty darn cool. We're thinking of other interactive sessions, as well as lectures and other fora, and partnerships with other organizations in the county. Last thing that I'm going to mention, actually second to last, is the Masterclass Preview event. This was picked up by Ann at the very beginning on Saturday, August 12th. If you have any curiosity about getting into the Masterclass, that's the day you should go and see what this is about, and really grill some of the people who've been in it and through it before. And the final is this coming Monday evening, the 1st, Paul Hawken will be doing a speech at Dominican about Project Drawdown. Drawdown, the book, which just came out last week, is pretty phenomenal. It's the top 100 things that we can all do, which include many of the things that were discussed tonight, but goes on to new businesses, new arrangements, new inventions that are all tested and tried in one level or another. There is the direct air capture device that takes carbon out of the air and turns it into carbon fiber and other things. And it's a growing business down in the peninsula. That'll be a pretty nifty event with Paul Hawken on Monday evening at 7 o'clock. I hope you can come. Are there any things that I've forgotten? Is there anybody else that wants, other than saying, what a wonderful job, and you guys are our heroes, really, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.